pawn d4, pawn d5, pawn c4, pawn e6, knight c3, pawn f5, knight f3, pawn c6, bishop f4, bishop d6, pawn e3, knight f6, bishop d3, queen c7, pawn g3, castles kingside, castles kingside, knight e4, queen b3, king h8, rook a1, c1, bishop takes f4, pawn e3 takes f4, queen f7, knight e5, queen e7, bishop takes e4, pawn f5 takes e4, pawn f3, pawn takes f3, rook c1, e1, queen c7, queen a3, king g8, rook takes f3, knight a6, pawn b3, queen d8, pawn c5, knight c7, queen b2, bishop d7, queen c2, queen e7, rook e1, f1, rook a8, e8, pawn g4, bishop c8, rook h3, pawn g6, pawn b4, queen f6, rook h3, f3, rook e7, pawn a4, pawn a6, knight d1, rook g7, knight e3, queen e7, pawn g5, bishop d7, knight e3, g4, bishop e8, knight h6, king h8, queen e2, queen d8, knight e5, g4, bishop d7, queen e5, knight e8, rook h3, queen c7, knight f6, queen takes e5, pawn f4 takes e5, rook e7, rook h3, f3, knight takes f6, rook takes f6, rook takes f6, pawn e5 takes f6, rook e8, knight f7, king g8, knight e5, rook D8. King G2. King F8. Pawn H4. Bishop E8. King F3. Bishop F7. King F4. King E8. Rook B1. King F8. Pawn B5. Pawn A6 takes B5. Pawn takes B5. Bishop E8. Pawn takes C6. Bishop takes C6. Knight takes C6. Pawn takes C6. King E5.